There you go.
Sit. Sit. This is Sherbert, a rescue dog from my favorite rescue here in LA, MaeDay Rescue. Hi, Natalie. All right, so Sherbert here is about 6 years old, bounced around from probably a bunch of different shelters. Natalie does a great job at MaeDay looking for these older dogs that have had a rough time and getting them in great homes, which is what she's already done. We just taught the dog to go to the dog bed on command, and I love the fact that the dog's already going there. All right, in this video, I'm going to cover some tips that help you with if your dog suffers from separation anxiety, which is what Sherbert does here. So basically, Sherbert, let's get you over here, buddy. There we go. So basically, separation anxiety is essentially a panic attack that the dog goes into when it's left home alone. And a lot of people feel sorry for dogs when they have separation anxiety, which we should have some kindness in our heart for them. But a lot of people make this big mistake when they have a dog with separation anxiety. They think, you know what, the dog's had a tough life. She has no teeth. That's the first time you sat down, or second time you sat down, so we'll beach. Oh, she laid down, and even better. And we don't need her for the camera for this part. So basically, we feel like sorry for the dog. She's been in shelter. She's had all her teeth removed. I'm going to make life easier for her. We're going to remove all rules. She's not going to have to do anything. We're going to just lavish love and attention on her and let her, anything she wants, we'll give it to her because she's had a tough time. All those things are contributing factors for developing separation anxiety. So basically, the dog starts to feel like I'm in charge of the human, but the human doesn't listen to me. So that stresses me out. And I'm insecure unless I'm with the human. So we get dogs sit that do things like follow us into the bathroom. Have to be touching us at all times. And after a while, you know, we get to the point where, and Sherbert's guardian is doing the same thing, is bringing the dog with you everywhere. Well, that can have a short-term effect of not having the dog have accidents in the house or chewing things. She's not going to chew anything. She doesn't have any teeth. But it doesn't help solve the problem. That's what we call maintenance. It's just preventing the dog from freaking out. So I'm going to go over some tips that will help you with separation anxiety and also my preferred method for stopping separation anxiety as she chases her tail. Now, it's important to understand that when if a dog does lose control of their bowels, or if they do chew your furniture or your cables or around the door or whatever, we take it personal. It is not personal. The dog's not doing it intentionally. It's doing it as a coping mechanism, trying to chew through the door to come and find you. Or it's losing control of its bowels, and that's why it's peeing. I had one client was like, my dog just gets really mad when we leave him alone. He goes and pees around the house and everything. No, he's losing control of his bowels. He's petrified. So if you have somebody who's petrified and you chew them out for for being nervous, that's going to make them more nervous, and it'll make your dog more insecure. So we talked off camera about building up the dog's self-esteem and confidence because insecurity is a key component of separation anxiety. And so, I mean, it's anxiety, it's in the definition. So I talked to the guardian about teaching the dog some new tricks and commands. This is a wonderful way to boost a dog's self-esteem. Sit. That's passive training. But it's a wonderful way for the dog to boost its self-esteem because if you're very confident about what you do at work, you know, when you're talking to people come in, and a reporter comes to talk to you, you're worried, or an inspector, you're not worried about it because you're so confident in what you're doing. You're just going through by route. I know people who are horrible public speakers, but if they talk about a subject that they do for a living that they're very confident about, they don't even think about the audience. So we want the dog to have different skills and commands. And so I talked to the guardian about passive training, which is waiting for the dog to organically offer you behaviors. So right there, she sat down, I gave her the treat and said, or I petted her and said, sit. I was also teaching her to stretch. This is really a form of operant conditioning. Every time she stretched, I gave her a treat and said the word stretch. You can call it yoga if you want. Again, I like using fun command words. But after a while, now if the dog starts getting nervous that you're about to leave, you say stretch, the dog stretches. Chases the tail. Every time he chases the tail, maybe you call that tornado. And so, you give her a treat every time she does that on her own. Well, now she's going to stretch. That's a perfect example of passive training right there. After a while, you'll say stretch, and the dog will stretch on command. And now it's not thinking about you leaving, it's thinking about the stretch, and then about the circle, and then going to the dog bed and all the other things. So teaching a dog that has separation anxiety new skills and commands is a wonderful way to boost their self-esteem, which will go a long ways towards removing the anxiety, and remove a lot of the part of separation anxiety. It's not going to fix it, but it's definitely things that are going to help. Now, when you have a dog that has separation anxiety, they typically start panicking. It's really two cases. Either I don't want to be left alone, or I don't want to be without one specific person. I don't know which case it is for here, but the methods I'm going over will work in both cases. So basically, in the short term, you don't want to put your dog in a kennel or leave it at home alone if possible. So I would recommend the guardian continue doing what he's doing now, is taking the dog to work while he's working on teaching the dog to stay, which we're going to go over in a second, and also desensitizing the dog from the individual triggers that alert it that we might be leaving. So have you noticed that, like, when you pick up your car keys, wear your sunglasses, or put your sandals on in a certain place, that she starts getting a little bit more nervous? So basically, the guardian said yes. That's right. But basically, the dog recognizes those triggers as part of the departure ritual. Before he leaves, he sits in this chair. He puts his shoes on. He grabs his keys from right there. He goes over there and grabs his sunglasses. He says bye to me, and then he leaves. So the dog starts getting worked up long before we leave. After a while, they get in a rhythm of, oh, it's Monday at 3 o'clock. He's getting ready to go to work. And so the dogs start to figure these things out, and they start working themselves into a frenzy. So you want to do what we call desensitization. So basically, if picking up the keys is one of the things that gets the dog excited, every once in a while you want to stand up, pick up the keys, and then put it back down on the table, and then sit back down. So you do these things independent of actually leaving. So picking up your keys, putting your shoes on, putting our sunglasses on. So if picking up the keys, which is usually a big precursor to it, pick up your keys, put them back down and sit down. Or just be sitting there, pick them up and jingle them and put them back down. So you want to repeat it several times independent of leaving. To the point where you pick up the keys, they don't even look at you anymore, other than, yeah, I heard a sound, but they're not getting up and pacing around. That's kind of a weird posture, but she's an unusual dog. That's why she's got such good character. That's why we love her. All right, so yes. Oh yes. Are we playing? Oh, that's not so much playing. I thought she was in a playful mood, and she said, "Nope. Now I don't know what you're doing." Okay, so make sure, and that's actually we can talk about that. Make sure that if your dog is nervous, you do not pet it when it is nervous. You will make it more nervous. You can lay your hand on the dog and let the dog know I'm here with you, without amplifying it, making it worse. See how she went over on her back? That can be an insecurity as well. Now, for some dogs, laying on the back is a way of saying, I'm supremely confident in the situation. So if you're just hanging out watching TV or playing video games, she lays on her back and goes like that, you should interpret the dog as being very confident. But if you reach to pet her and she rolls over on her back and stops and gives you a belly, don't pet her, because that's reinforcing that insecurity. Beach. Love how she's doing that. Okay, so you want to make sure that you desensitize your dog for all the individual triggers. You also can exercise your dog before you're going to leave. And that puts the dog in a position to succeed. Now, what I found with separation anxiety is the dog has gone from, in her case, probably being on the streets and being in shelter in some scary places, and now I found somebody who's taking care of me. I'm not letting this person out of my sight because I've had some bad experiences being on my own. So when you leave, the dog goes from 100% access to you to 0. There's nothing in between, and that's jarring, and it's too much. So what I've had really good success with is teaching the dog to stay. So we can have the dog to stay while we go to the bathroom, or we can make a sandwich. So the dog stays, it knows it's not alone, you're here, but you're outside, you're not right next to me, or eventually you're outside of my line of sight. Now, if you're teaching a dog to stay, and I'm old, so I'm gonna have to shift my legs a little bit, then there's 3 Ds for teaching your dog to stay. First for duration, then for distance, then for distractions. Most people try to teach the dogs with all 3, which makes it 3 times as hard. So I'm going to show you the steps, but what I want you to do is I want you to practice duration until you can get her to stay this close to you for 5 minutes, 5 different times in a row. Only then would you go to adding in distance, which I'll talk about, and eventually do it with distractions. So we need to come up with a release word. Do you have any thoughts of what you would like for the release word to be? I say release, break, freedom, and parole. Some people say vacation, holiday. You could, if there's a part of the work process that means you're done with...
break is good.
What is?
Break.
Break, okay, perfect. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, now when you're doing this, when you're doing it for duration, like I said, you want to get to 5 minutes. So you want to count in your head. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they don't know where the dog is at when they're counting for duration, and then they just have to guess. So if you're at you're going from 20 seconds to 30 seconds, and you go 28, 29, and the dog gets up and leaves, that means the next time you meet, you push too far. The next time you should practice to 25 or 26. But if you haven't counted in your brain, you don't know where you're at.
Okay.
So when it comes to stay, the most important thing is the dog has to have 100% success. If you push too far, which is a mistake most people do, you end up dog doing something called auto-releasing, which kind of negates the whole thing. All right, so a couple other real quick housekeeping things. I'll get back on my knees once blood circulation comes back to my feet. So when you're doing it, you want to come up with a command word for stay. I'm assuming stay is fine. And if you're putting your dog in a sit stay and it lays down every time you start it, just put it in a lay down position. The book says the dog just has to stay in the location. I'm stricter for what I do. I want my dogs, if I put you in this one standing on one leg stay, I want you to stay on one leg. But the book says as long as the dog sits there, but if you do notice your dog always oscillates to a down or to a sit, just start off in that position. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'll do it cross-legged here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is ask her to come, sit. So I'm gonna add the treat in this hand, my left hand. I'm gonna give her the hand signal with my right. So I'm gonna say stay and pull it back to my chest. So I give it halfway distance between me and the dog. Stay. So I'm really bookending it. I'm saying stay twice. Once to start the stay, once to stop the stay, and then after that, I need to give the dog another direction. Do we release it from the stay, or do we do a stay again? So I'm going to show you 3 of them in a row, and then I'll show you how to release your dog from the stay. So I have the treat in this hand. I go halfway distance between me and the dog, stay, and then I pull it back to my chest and I count 1, 2, 3. Then both hands together, stay. To end it, then I say stay again, stay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stay. And I pull my hand back again. Stay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Stay. So we've just done 3 in a row. Now, instead of giving her the command to do it again, I'm going to give her the we're done command, and we're going to say break. So I throw the treat just outside the dog's reach, so it has to take 1 or more steps, or 1 to 3 steps. And then when it licks up the treat, I say the word break. That means we're done with this. Stay means stay until you hear the release word. Wait means wait until you hear the next command, which might be sit, come, lay down, release, whatever it is. So most people actually think they're teaching a dog to stay, they're really teaching it to wait. A lot of people say stay, come. Well, that's just combining all 3, and it's just too hard for the dog to do. So what I usually do is I start off with 1 second, but for her I was at 3s and she was fine. So next time you maybe do it for 4. So 4 seconds, the first one, then 8 seconds, the second one, then 12 seconds, the third one. You want to keep these practice sessions at least until we get to the point where we're having her stay for longer than a minute, really less than about 2 minutes. When it comes to general training, you want to keep your training sessions to about 90 seconds or less. This is one of the rare exceptions, because we want the dog to be able to stay for longer periods of time. Now, when I was doing it here, we're only at 3, 6, 9 seconds, it's not a big deal. But when you get up to the point where you're like 15 to 20 seconds, if you stare at your dog the whole time you're doing this, the first time you break eye contact, the dog will get up and walk away. So once you get down to about 10 or 15 seconds, stay, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And notice when I was giving the treat, I was giving it with the hand signal at the same time. So imagine my hands are handcuffed together. So that way we have a signal for it. All right, so that's basically for duration. So you're going to keep practicing with that, and don't just practice it here. Practicing it there, practice it over there, practice it over there in the kitchen, maybe not in the bathroom. But at work, she goes with her guardian to work, so practice it, stay at work. Now, at work, there's distractions. So that's going to make it a lot harder. So I probably just stay with duration till you can achieve the 5-minute mark here inside your house. Now, when I start doing distance, I'm going to stand up, and this might be a little challenging because we're tight little quarters here in is this North Hollywood? Consider okay. So I'm going to stand up because I want to move away. And again, you're not going to do the stage until you get to that 5-minute stage 5 different times in a row. Don't do stay till 5 minutes, stay till 5 minutes. Stay till 5 minutes. Next time you do it, stay till 5 minutes. When you get 5 of those different times throughout the day, and she did it without auto-releasing, then you're ready to do duration. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'll kind of crouch down when I'm doing this. So I'm going to say stay, pull my hand back to my breast. I take 1 step backwards, and I count to 2. I'm only crouching down for the camera purposes. I count to 2, then I take a step back to the dog, and I say stay again. And then either I start it up and say stay, 1, 2, and then I count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, stay. Break. So I ended it. So make sure you always end it, otherwise the dog kind of auto releases, and again that takes away the whole deal. Now my genesis point is I take 1 step away and I count to 2. I double the number of steps for the number of seconds. So I take 2 steps away, I count to 4. But that's just my starting process. Every dog is unique. So you might be able to go pretty well with her. She's an older dog. She's actually at the optimal age for training a dog, which is 6 years old. They're young enough to still have beans, but they're old enough to be not so crazy, and they still want to please you. So you should probably go pretty quickly with this. The idea with this is when we get to the point where once we can step up to 15 feet away, and again, it's a little bit challenging because we have some tight quarters here. What I might do is have her stay like by your door with your door closed, walk backwards, the kitchen's over there, and the first time you go out of line of sight, you want to make sure that you're she's consistently staying for up to 15 feet away. So let's say that the wall is right here, and the dog is where she is. I'd say stay, I back up several steps, I take a step here, so I'm now blocked behind the wall. So really, I take a step, I'm out of sight for 1 second, I take a step back and walk back to the dog and say stay. So the first time I'm out of sight, it's only for 1 second. Then I back up 15 feet again, or approximately, and then I stay out of sight for 2 seconds, then for 3, and then 4 and 5. Once I get to 5, then I usually go from 5 to 10, 10 to 15, then 15, 30, 45, 1 minute, then I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to get to the point where, well, for dogs, the rule is once you can get them to do something for 2 hours, you don't have to practice beyond that. I don't think we'll have to practice that. The whole point of this exercise, we want to get to the point where she can stay on her own for up to like 10, 15 minutes. So the idea is you put her in the kitchen, say stay, then you walk out here and watch TV for 15 minutes. She practices being alone, but knows that you're in the house because she hasn't opened the door open, but she can't see you, and she's not physically touching you. So what we're doing is helping her practice being alone. Now, once you get to the point where you can get her to stay, and you can watch like a TV program for quite a while, and she stays back there, that is the point where you want to start practicing having her leave. Now, the Guardian here I see has a little security camera, which makes it even easier. So the first time we do this, the mistake most people make is they make too big of a jump. So when you actually start leaving, what I would have you do before you're actually leaving is stimulate leaving. So you're not going to put her in a stay at this point because she's already done that. We want to keep on practicing the stay until she can, like I said, have a good 15. And if when you start leaving, if she panics, then you might have to go to 20 minutes or 30 minutes of staying in the house and have her build up that confidence from the practice of being alone. But eventually what you want to do is just get up, and when you leave, don't say a word to her about leaving. We feel bad, but we'll make it worse. And try to do it, again, we've desensitized her for all the triggers, so when you're doing this, since we're not actually leaving, don't put your shoes on, don't grab your keys, leave your door unlocked. Just get up, open the door, walk outside the door, close it, have your phone so you can watch the dog on the security camera. And as soon as you walk outside, close both doors, wait 1 second of no sounds, then turn around, come back in and sit back down. Next time, and then wait a little until your dog relaxes. When she relaxes, get up. This time you leave for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Same sort of ritual that we talked about for duration. But now we're actually leaving and we're closing the door behind us. And we're helping them practice being alone, but again, for only 1 second. Then the person comes back, and then 2 seconds, and 3 seconds. So it gets more and more confident. Eventually, you want to get to the point where you can actually have, I would take a cocktail out there first, or beer, and then basically go out there and sit there and just have your camera there watching. So you're not going to go, a lot of people get to the point where they're like, okay, well, I've achieved 1 minute, now I'll just go get a coffee. Well, that's going to take you 25 minutes between you actually come back in. That is going to be too long. The whole point of this exercise is we don't want the dog to panic at all. We want the dog to practice being completely calm when you're gone. Now, there are little tips and tricks that you can do for this. Because she has no teeth, she can't have bully sticks, but a Kong would probably be a wonderful thing for her because she can lick the peanut butter. So we fill up a peanut butter for Kong, let her get into it. Give her about 2 or 3 minutes so she's really into it. Then get up and leave and close the door, watch her on the security camera. If she goes back to licking it, man, you're in a good shape because they will not lick or eat things when they're panicked. So, but the idea is you're just going to be progressive until you get to the point where you're outside for like a half an hour, watching her on the deal, and she's completely relaxed. Now, when you get past about 15 minutes, if she goes and sits and lays down, you're probably in the clear. But I would recommend practicing more prudently in terms of you being just right outside the door. So if she does panic, you can get back inside right away before she panics for too long. If she starts panicking, you want to come back in as quickly as you can. You don't want to do that a lot, because that will actually make the dog think panicking causes my dog, the human, to return. But you want to come back in as quickly as you can so she's not practicing it, but then recognize how long were you at before she panicked. Now in the future, I'm going to have to, if it was 3 minutes when she started panicking, now let's go back and practice in the house of having her practice being alone, or having her practice being in here when I'm outside for only 2 minutes, and I do a couple 2-minute practices before I try to go back to that 2 minutes, 30 minutes, seconds, or whatever it was. Again, you're going to be tempted to push too far too fast. It's better to be conservative and go slow and build a really solid foundation than move fast and have a lot of auto releases and failures and panics, and then the dog's practicing doing the things we don't want.
Okay.
Sherbert. Come. Here, we'll do it right here. How about that? This amazingly cute dog is Sherbert, and from MaeDay Rescue. So if you're looking for a dog in LA, check out Natalie and MaeDay. They do a great job. These are tips and tricks on how you can desensitize your dog, help it practice learning to stay, and ultimately practice being home alone to help it get over its gates of separation anxiety. All right, stop.